From the spreads to the lines, who's up, who's down. We're crunching the numbers, calling the plays, talking all sports in a big time way. Yeah, yeah. Spreadsheet sports, let's ride.
My Spreadsheet Sports. It is March the 4th, and we have 44 games on the slab today. I was able to find us 7 games that I think had some value. Obviously, I'm never going to run down all of the games that's on the slate for today. And even as you continue to follow me and watch me, you'll see that when we do it other sports, like with baseball, the same thing. Even when there's a full slate or a half a slate, I'm still not going to run down all of the activity. It's just the ones that make the most sense for all of us. But as we all start off, thank you guys for like, comment, sharing, and subscribing and helping the channel grow. I hope you're finding some value, whether it's entertainment value or monetary value, if you are in the betting world. But as always, my disclaimer, this is not a betting channel. We are just simply looking at the game very objectively, and we are running down the numbers and the matchups just to see how things could unfold. As I've told you in the past, I have now come to understand how the marketplace is connected to the entertainment value. So when I'm looking for certain games, there's certain things that have to be presented to me in order for me to say, I think that's going to be a good game to watch because it's going to be competitive. We all know that we don't like to watch the games where it's going to be a blowout. And if you're in the betting world, the blowouts, they don't pay that well, especially when the book knows it's going to be a blowout. But if you can find those games that are competitive and or find the dogs, then oh boy, you got yourself a really, 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 really good show for tonight. But anyway, as I mentioned yesterday, we'll start our shows out now. We're talking about the playback / recap of the previous night. And that way we can see how my activity lined up and my observation and whether my selection was any good or if it was trash. Because as I told you guys as well, the reason I love this so much is because you can't finagle your way through this. Either you got it right or you got it wrong. And that part I love because there's no brown nosing or teacher's pet or whatever. It's like, did you find the game worth watching and you were happy? Yes. Great. Did you not? No. That's probably why you turned the TV off and went to something else and started binging a series. If you're in the betting world, did you make the right selection and get paid? Yes. Great night. Did you make the wrong selection and had a horrible night and lost your money? No. So that's how that works. But we'll dive in and we'll see how everything unfolds tonight. And I think these 7 games that we're gonna look at are gonna have some entertainment value for you guys. Now, as we take a walk down memory lane and we look at the games from yesterday, I wanted to break this apart in several different areas. Okay, so as you look at the layout, okay, at the very top, this section is dealing with the money line selections. Okay, now this area is for any of the games that I thought that would have some type of success with winning the money lines. As you see, 5 of the 6 that I selected did in fact win the money lines. So good job with that. When you look at the chart at the bottom, starting with Jacksonville all the way to Idaho State, 5 out of 9 that I selected actually hit the spread. And then when you also look at the points, right, and literally choosing what the team would score on points, I got 6 out of 9 for those. For the 2 dogs, that I saw, well, I had a total of 2 dogs that I selected, right? But for the money line, one hit for the money line, and then for the spread, 2 or 2 hit for the spread. So pretty good day in regards to that. So I'm happy with that. And we look forward to having even better numbers on tomorrow or somewhere close to this because this was actually a decent night. But I always want to share this with you guys. That way you can see and that way you know I'm not just throwing numbers out at you. But when you look at these pages, anything that's in purple or purple and green, like that purple and green texture, those are the ones that actually hit. So here's my information. Here's my data for full transparency and let you know I'm not barking up your leg or pissing on your leg and telling you it's raining. This is actually what it is. But let's dive in and see what we got for tonight. So on the slate for money line and entertainment value games, I am looking at Vermont, Lafayette, Auburn, and San Diego State. Okay. And these particular games I like for several reasons, whether or not they're coming in and they have a good chance of winning at home or a good chance of winning on the road, as well as a better record in regards to their win-loss record, or they're knocking out all of the different categories of points, rebounds, assists, all of the above, right? So these are the things that help me identify what would be a good matchup. And then there's also how they match up in their conference when they're playing these particular teams as we're getting closer to the tournament. Um, man, these things count. But the one thing that you have to take into account when the tournament does actually get live is that the teams that play well on the road and the teams that have the more mature roster, juniors and seniors, those are your teams that you literally want to keep a laser focus on. Okay. Mainly because they are the ones that have the cohesiveness from the upperclassmen and they have a system that they already run. The ones that are winning on the road, most of the games throughout the tournament, especially once we get to Sweet 16 and the Final Four and the championship, it's all about who can win on the road, not who just knows how to win or they have the probability to win. So take that into account as you guys are doing your own prospecting. And as I've always mentioned, feel free to get into the comment section. Tell me what you disagree with. Tell me what you do agree with. And more importantly, tell me why. Tell me what it is that I'm getting wrong. Tell me what it is that I don't see that may come and punch me in the face around the corner. When it comes to these type of selections. But as we run down through this list, I think Vermont, Lafayette, Auburn, and San Diego State are going to be some good entertainment games as well as some good money line games. And even when I was pulling these games, they actually are money line and or spread if you're into that, right? I mean, you're running down the odds that are here, right? They're paying minus 205 for Vermont. They're paying minus 260 for Lafayette. That's not attractive. I mean, that's just way too much to pay. But if you added something to it, if you added something to it, I would add on the points. Projected points are around 74, so I would take something over 70. Again, not a betting channel, but if that's your thing, that's where I would go. Um, and I think they can cover the spread of 6.5. And I think Vermont can cover the spread of 4.5. I think Auburn can cover 4.5. I think San Diego State can cover 2.5. I actually know San Diego can cover 2.5. And they're on the road and they're some dogs and they're the better team. They're definitely covering the 2.5. Um, but that's what I got. So let's dive in a little bit more deeply and look at two of these games and really pull them apart box by box. So let's take a little bit of a deep dive on these two games. The two that I pulled out was the Albany versus Vermont and the Auburn versus Texas A&M. And I'm going to tell you why I think that they are going to go the way that I think they're going to go. And these are just for, like I said, this is money line and this is entertainment value, right? So with that being said, the reason that I like Vermont over Albany is this, okay? Let's start at the beginning. Let's pull it apart like we always do, okay? Starting at the very beginning of it all, we have the question of how are both teams doing on the road or at home, okay? That's the column that says RH-WL. That's what that stands for, okay? Road, home, win, loss. That's what that acronym stands for. Albany wins 56% of their games on the road. Vermont wins 82%. So they're winning in that category. Okay, so Vermont gets a vote of confidence there. How is Vermont versus Albany when it comes to the last three games? Vermont has won all the last three games, so they're on a tear. Albany has only won 67%, which is two of the three, right? Okay. So they kind of almost still the same, right? But here's where they start to differ a little bit. How are they with the categories, right? They're better ranked than Albany's better ranked in offense, but Vermont's better ranked in defense and better ranked in rebounds. So they're going to crash the board. But even though they're ranked better in defense, they still are kind of the same. So both of the teams are going to crash the board. When it comes to the assist, it's also almost the same thing as well. Both of them are going to move the ball around. And then when you look at the 3-point attempts, they also around the same as well. Both of them are going to take around the same amount of 3-point attempts. But what changes is that the percentage of 3-pointers for them making it, here's where Vermont has an edge. Okay, they make more threes, not taking threes. When it comes to field goal attempts, it's all around. Albany wins that battle. But we all know when simple math, 3 points beats 2 any day of the week and twice on Sunday. The other part is going to be the math, right? And the math says that Vermont wins this game as well. The math, the formulas, the statistical formulas, the data says that we're looking at 74 to 69, at 71, 61, and a 52% chance that Vermont wins. Okay. So with that being said, the only other thing to really review would be the injuries, but neither team has injuries. Both of them have a winning record, but Vermont is coming in with a much better record. And on top of that, they're much better ranked in the conference. Than Albany is as well. And not to mention their makeup of upperclassmen of 75% versus the 53% for Albany is where the cohesiveness comes in. And this is where I think it really takes off from here. And this is why ultimately I think Vermont is not going to just win the game, but I also think that they can cover the spread and they're going to outscore them. Um, it may even stay tight until the first half. And then after the first half, you might see Vermont pulling away. I'm starting to see that as a trend in most of these college teams, but take that into account. Now, this next game, Auburn and Texas A&M. Let's pull it apart. Let's start at how they do on the road versus at home. Auburn is, in fact, winning 93% of their games on the road. That's tough. Okay, and on top of that, Texas A&M is winning 80% of their games at home. Okay. Where I think it kind of starts, the rails start to come off, is going to be two areas. Why Texas A&M, I think, don't have a chance for this game. I don't even think they have a chance for the plus 4.5, but the math says that they do. But I'm just going to do an executive override. I just don't see Texas A&M covering the plus 4.5. But here's why: Texas A&M has lost their last three games. Okay, they do have more seniors and more upperclassmen. But the thing is, the categories that Texas A&M is doing better in is going to be in defense and in rebounds, which means they're going to crash the boards. And on top of that, they're going to definitely be competitive and make Auburn make some really good plays and make some shots. But they're up against a number 4 Auburn when it comes to offense. I don't know if they can survive that. To be honest, Auburn's 27-2 coming into this. But Texas A&M is not no punks. They coming in at 20-9, right? And then when you look at the assists and the 3 points and 3-point percentage and field goal percentage and field goal attempts, with all of this being said, this is where Auburn starts to dominate as well. So with Auburn dominating the categories, Texas A&M still being somewhat competitive, they have the better seniors. The math is saying that they might get 75, which kind of keeps things close. But I think the math is off in this scenario. I think Auburn takes this, runs away with it, and they do what they do. And we will be looking at a game where Auburn wins, covers the spread, and they don't break a sweat. To be honest, I don't think they're going to have to work hard for it. The only thing that's against Auburn is probably a game time decision on injury. Denver Jones, and if he does play, he brings 11 points to the contribution along with this Joni Broom, and literally those two together, that's what 29 points right there. So the rest of the team just doing their role play. I don't see where Auburn is going to be hurt. But if, in fact, Denver Jones doesn't play, it might make it a little bit interesting, and maybe the spread is going to be at jeopardy. But if both of them play and Denver Jones is a game time decision, then I think we're going to see Auburn with a tremendous win. Texas A&M coming in with no injuries, and they got Wade Taylor at guard, bringing in 15 points. I just don't see him throwing the game on his back, but he's only contributing 20%. So the rest of the players are going to have to do what they do, which is still not a problem because there's no injury. So with all of that being said, if they can stay healthy through this game, they can keep it tight. Texas A&M can at least probably last to the end. I don't see them getting blown out, but I definitely see Auburn winning this game and covering the spread. Um, it's just the math. I'm just going with the math. I'm going with the data. Um, I'm going with observation. I've watched both of these teams play so far, and I like their strategies. I like how they have some splash plays here and there. I like their momentum. I like when they get the defensive board, they turn around and they'll go back and try to make something happen versus just trying to go and set up a play. So for those reasons alone, I am still going to stay with Auburn. But if you think that I'm off or missing something, please let me know and put it in the comments. As for the spreads, these are the teams that I think are going to be able to cover the spread. And again, I'm going to pull two of them out of here just so we can really look at what those two may be. But I'm looking at Binghamton covering an 8-point spread. I like Vermont to cover a 4.5 spread. I like Lafayette to cover a 6.5 spread. I like Auburn to cover the 4.5 spread. We just talked about Auburn. We talked about Vermont already, right? Vanderbilt, I like them covering 7-point spread, and I like San Diego State covering the 2.5 spread. I'll tell you why as we pull two of these games out here as well. Um, but that's what I'm thinking. If you guys did see something else or you know something I don't, then let me know. I mean, because as it stands right now, all of these teams are coming in with a better record. All of these teams are coming in dominating most of the categories. All of these teams, except for one, is coming in being better ranked in the conference, except for Vanderbilt. And then all of these teams as well don't really have any injury problems. I mean, the biggest problem with injuries is San Diego State, but they still are better than their opponent. So with that being said, I like them being set up for an ability to run the table with these guys. But let's take a look at two of the games and dive in a little bit more in detail and see what we got. So the two games I chose for us to look at under a microscope are going to be NJIT and Binghamton, and San Diego State and UNLV. Okay. Here's the thing about these two games. Um, I like Binghamton, especially for the spread, just because of their dominance. They're not just going to win this game. They're going to win this game and they're going to cover the spread. It'll probably be more. They'll probably win by more than 8, to be honest. And the reason is that they're up against NJIT that they suck on the road. They don't have that many upperclassmen, and they haven't won any of the last 3 games. And they're not even competitive when it comes to the categories. The only thing that they got on their side is the field goal attempts. They take more shots, but they don't make more. So it's like, what do you want? You know what I mean? Like, from a per capita perspective, I just don't like NGIT for anything. Like, I don't like them to even cover the plus 8.5, which the math thinks, but I just don't see it because even though they don't have any injuries, they're not doing anything. They like if even if their defense was somewhat aggressive, competitive, maybe I go with plus 8.5. But nah, nah. I'm going with -8, -8.5 for Binghamton. Maybe even um, I would even see what it would, how beneficial it would be if you're in that betting world. What would it pay you to go and be at -9.5 for that particular game. Because they're already paying -110 in the odds, but if you go up to 9, maybe it's crossing over in the plus cheese, maybe. Um, yeah, and I was surprised even on the money line that they didn't even like pay out more to choose NJIT. It's almost like they know something that we don't by just making it plus cheese at 330 for the money line. You would think it would be like plus 1300, but we'll see. I could be wrong on this. It might be some data points I'm missing. Injuries aren't a factor in this. I mean, you got Tyreek Francis and Channery, and they are your breadwinners for both of these teams. Both of them are dealing with a lot of turnover problems, but they're two guards that make a major contribution. But Tyreek makes more of a contribution, so he's the one-man show for NJIT, where Chinnery is actually more of a team player, and they move the ball around. And they obviously assist are a huge thing with Binghamton, but we'll see what happens. I just think that Binghamton ultimately is going to do their thing, and they will cover the spread. Um, and again, like I said, I think that they beat them far more than just 8 or 9 points. So that's where I'm at with that game. For San Diego State UNLV, um, let's break it all the way down. But this is a competitive game, somewhat, not all the way, but somewhat. Let's break it down. Road and on the home. San Diego State, they won 69% of their games. UNLV, they won 69% of their games at home. Okay, so they kind of tied, right? We kind of at a stalemate. Okay, where are they at with the last 3 games? 2 out of 3 for San Diego State, 2 out of 3 for UNLV. This game is getting scary, right? To even bet on, right? But you better believe it's going to be worth watching on TV, even if you don't do the whole speculation, gambling, or betting, or whatever you want to call it, right? Upperclassmen are going to be the difference along with injuries. Okay, so 64% of the roster for UNLV are upperclassmen, juniors, and seniors, right? Half of the roster for San Diego State are juniors and seniors. So they have some leadership. It's not like it's 30% or 20%, right, of upperclassmen. But with that being said, San Diego State wins most of the individual competition areas like offensive points, defensive points allowed, rebounds, assists, 3-point attempts, 3-point percentage, field goals, and field goal percentage. I get that, but they're not dominating. They just win those, but they win them by a slight margin, which speaks back to the whole thing of this being competitive. Okay. Now, with that being said, UNLV injuries, I think, are going to be what possibly will be the deciding factor. This Daydon Thomas, Mr. Thomas, he brings 16 points. He's that guard. If he does in fact play and it's not and let's just say it's a game time decision for UNLV and they do let Mr. Daydon Thomas or Dadon Thomas, if he plays, we're looking at a different ball game. If he doesn't, San Diego State by a mile. San Diego State does have some injury issues, but their forward is only bringing 9 points. I'm not really worried about that being replaced, but that's what they're really looking at. Miles Bird is going to still bring his 13 points, but he does have a slight problem with turnovers. But Miles Bird only really makes a contribution of 20%. Mr. Thomas, on the other hand, is about a quarter percent of their points. So if he doesn't play, UNLV is in big trouble, especially with San Diego State coming in as a better ranked team within that conference of the Mountain West. So the math says it is San Diego State. The statistical data says it is San Diego State. The upperclassmen and their win ratio on the road in the last 3 says it's San Diego State. If it looks like a duck, sounds like a duck, then it gotta be a duck. So I'm going with San Diego State unless Mr. the Don Thomas actually does show up and his game time decision is suiting up for war, then yeah, we got ourselves a different ball game. But for that being said, I'm gonna stick with San Diego State to cover the spread. It's only 2.5. Now, if it was 9 or 10, that's different. And I think because of the situation with Mr. Thomas, that is the reason that they have it at 2.5, because I think that they don't really know either. So kind of a coin toss, but that's what I like for that game. Um, Again, I could be wrong, and I'm cool with that, but that's where the data is leading me to. And here we are with the dogs. So, right, it's the wolves coming out of the wolf pack, yo. This is gonna be bloodbaths. Oh man. I don't think these three teams are gonna go away quietly. I'm becoming a little partial to BYU. um, for multiple reasons. They have been definitely coming through in the clutch for me, but we're going to take my bias off the table and really look at the game for what it is. Um, Light bulb moment. If you have a team, never bet your team if you are in fact betting. If you're just watching TV, then yeah, keep it all the way biased with your team. But let's dive into these. I mean, like I said, I don't think these three teams are going to go away quietly. Um, I do like them for multiple reasons, and we'll get into that. That's far beyond what you're looking right here. But I just think that they can definitely cover the spreads. I don't see them not at least covering the spread. Now, whether or not they can win, we'll talk about that as we break down the game under the microscope. Now, the first one up is going to be the 7 o'clock game, Central Michigan versus Ball State. Okay. I got Ball State being able to cover the spread. Okay. Here's why. Even though on the road, Central Michigan is 27%, which means they're horrible. Ball State ain't the best at home either. They're at 50% of their games at home. So with them winning half of their games at home and coming in with a better record than Central Michigan and their better ranking in the conference, I think those three things right there is where you kind of start in regards to figuring out who's the better competitor. Okay? Let's start there. The books think that Ball State's going to lose, and I'm inclined to agree with them, except Central Michigan sucks on the road. With them winning 27% of their games on the road and Ball State winning more at home than Central Michigan, that part has got me scratching my head. And I really am like I'm at a loss of words. I'm gonna tell you what really gets me over the hump with them. Central Michigan, however, has won 2 out of the last 3 games, whereas Ball State has only won 1 out of the last 2 games. We still scratching our head, right? Let's dive into the categories. Ball State is doing a little bit better than Central Michigan when it comes to offensive point production. Central Michigan is doing significantly better than Ball State on defensive production for points allowed. When it comes to rebounds and assists, they're both kind of like almost together, and it's not really a domination of rebound assists. So both teams are going to move the ball around. Both teams are going to crash the board as much as they normally do. There's nothing different with that. They are identical almost with 3-point attempts. They're going to take about the same amount of 3 points, right? The one thing that does change is that Ball State makes more threes than Central Michigan. So the fact that they're making more threes is what helps me lean towards that. Neither one of them have any injuries to really talk about. Nobody. I mean, maybe they got some hurt players, but they don't have anybody injured. The math says that Ball State wins the game. And I'm going to do a show on the math, and I'm going to pull it apart for you guys. I'm going to pull apart my whole spreadsheet for a game so you can see all of the wonderful magic behind it. I don't mind that I show that to you and it's proprietary because it's often imitated but never duplicated. You won't know how to produce what I have in the back not by first glance. You'll have to go through the fire just like I did, and I wish you the best. And I'm confident that you can do it. I'm not like most people that say you can't do it or that it's impossible. Everything is possible if you try hard enough. So for that reason, I say have at it, ladies and gentlemen, and let me know what you come up with. I'm sure you can come up with something even better than me, and I hope you do. And that makes me better if you do. Um, but the math, like I said, 78-75 is what the formulas are saying. But they're saying that 55%, 52%, and 49% thinks that Central Michigan's going to win this game. I'm going to disagree with them. I'm going to disagree that they win the game for the fact that that one thing that tells me that it was two things. They suck on the road, and I like the balance of upperclassmen leadership for Ball State. I think Ball State's senior and junior leadership and them winning at home more than Central Michigan does on the road, and Ball State having a better record, and Ball State having a better conference ranking, and the math saying that they can score 78 points. I think that Ball State wins and Ball State covers the positive spread, even if they don't win. Either one of those, I think, are, if you're in the betting world, either one of those works. Um, I really do think so. I don't think that Central Michigan is going to even score 70 points. I think they're going to be around 68, 69 points. I don't see them even getting past 70. And for that reason, I see Ball State getting 72, 73, 75, maybe even 80 points in this game. Home court advantage is definitely going to be in their favor, but we'll see what happens with this particular game. But that's the one game where I'm like, not only can they cover the spread, but I also think it's an upset alert, and I think Ball State is going to win. Next up on the slate, we have Villanova and Georgetown. Villanova and Georgetown is going to be an interesting game to watch as well. They have a winning loss record of 16-13. And with that being said, it's not good enough. In regards to Villanova coming in, Villanova is coming in with a much better win record. I don't think Georgetown wins this game. I just think that they can cover the spread of plus 5.5. I think ultimately Villanova does win, but they still are kind of shaky too. It's almost like the game that we just got through looking at, right? When it came to Central Michigan and Ball State, it's so kind of all over the place. For example, let's start at win-loss ratio, right? Before we even get into the injuries, because both teams have some injuries to deal with. But looking at the win-loss ratio, I see that Georgetown wins better at home than Villanova does on the road. Red flag. Out of the last three games, though, Villanova has won all the last three games, whereas Georgetown hasn't. Not good. Not to mention, Georgetown is coming into this, and they don't have that much senior leadership. They are a young team. And I don't know if the light's going to be too bright for them, but they could be, especially up against a team that has over half of their roster is juniors and seniors. So they have the leadership and they have everything else. But even though they have that, they are struggling to win on the road. I think that if Georgetown just runs around, be competitive, do what they do, and forget about the fact that they're young, that's when I think they can be competitive, especially when you really look at how they do what they do when it comes to the offensive points and it comes to the defensive points. Villanova has checked off those boxes. And they not only have checked them off, but they dominate. Except for the defensive points. I think if Georgetown runs around and beat a young team and make some things happen, but they gotta deliver if they get some turnovers. Okay? But even with that being said, what Georgetown does do right is their rebounds and assists. If they can crash the boards and move the ball around, stay lively and stay young, they keep this interesting. Villanova's 3 points is probably what they're going to lean on. They're going to take more threes, but they don't necessarily mean they're going to make more threes. It's just, especially with them losing on the road, I think they got to kind of get acclimated, and hopefully they got some fan base in the stands to kind of cheer them on. Maybe, maybe not. But they are really, really, really good at making 3-pointers. So I think Villanova might stretch all the way away if they get in the rhythm of 3-pointers. which could be the knife in the wound packing with salt. And if that's the case, Villanova is victorious that way. But the math says that Georgetown can win this game. The formulas say that Villanova wins the game. So when it's like that, almost like a stalemate, I kind of have to revert back to the senior leadership as well as how they win on the road or how they win at home. Georgetown loses, but I think that they are scrappy and I think that they hold on to the very end. And then maybe it's like they're down by 6, they're down by 8 with like maybe 1 minute and some change left on the clock. They make a comeback, couple foul shots, and they lose within 4 or 5 points. Kind of like last night's game with Northwestern. Man, that was a great game. I'll talk about that a little bit later, but great game last night with that. Um, that's what I got with this game. I mean, obviously the injuries are going to be something to take note of. I mean, not like they're making major contributions from the injury. Those that are hurt aren't going to be like an end all be all. But for both teams, production wise, Eric Dixon is going to be a major contributor to Villanova. Michael Peavy, he's not a major contributor. Eric Dixon, I think, is going to throw Villanova on his back, and he's going to do what he does, and he's going to crash the boards. He's going in for layups. He might dunk on a couple people. I think he's their guy. And for our last game, BYU Iowa State. I kind of just want to go with BYU at first glance, but let's see if BYU can win. I think they can cover the spread, but let's look at the data and let's see if BYU can even win this game. Because this might be an upset alert. This might be an upset alert right along with the Ball State game. Ball State game, Ball State might win. But with BYU and Iowa State, BYU could win. Here's why. BYU has won close to a little bit over half of their games in a row, 54%. They got 71% of their roster are upperclassmen. They won all of the last 3. They're dominating in all of the categories. I don't really got to dig too deep into this game because they're up against the Iowa State that all of the categories they're being beaten, but Iowa State wins very good at home. They win damn near all of their games at home. They have a nice blend of juniors and seniors as well on their roster. Not to mention they have won 1 out of 3 games, the last 3 games. They're coming in with 22-7 on their record, and they're number 2 in their conference. And BYU is more like a number 8 team in their Big 12. I get all of that. I understand all of that. And technically, Iowa State is supposed to be the better team. But the only injury that BYU has is this canine catchings, and I don't know if his 8 points is going to be a make or break for whether or not BYU loses or wins this game because Richie Saunders and Curtis Jones, they are the major contributors, and they only 16, 17 points, and which giving about 20% of contribution. So I think the rest of the team is going to be a team effort from both of these. I think BYU definitely keeps it competitive, and we will see how it unfolds. But the math says Iowa State should win this game. My executive override decision is that BYU not only covers the spread at 9.5, and I would even give myself a cushion and buy it up to 10.5 because it's already negative 105. It can't be any worse than that, right? Buy it up to 10.5 plus cheese. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's gonna be plus cheese. No, it's not. Um, Buy it up to 10.5. If maybe it's negative 115, maybe 110. I'm gonna look at it, but that's what I see for that game. And then for the spread, the money line plus 360. Who wouldn't like that cash out? And it's not even a far reach when you look at the game this way. Upset alert, maybe. BYU. They haven't steered me wrong so far. So on that note, that brings us to the end of the show. Um, I forget to tell you guys how excited I was last night about Northwestern State. I mean, not Northwestern State, Northwestern. I was in here thinking it was all over Northwestern and what was it, UCLA, and they were going back and forth, and Northwestern was playing tough. I had taken Northwestern for 4.5, and I bought it up to 4.5, but Northwestern, the original bet was 3.5, but I was like, 3.5 was just too risky for me on the plus odds. But what happened was they battled until halftime. Then after halftime, UCLA got away from them and they were playing solid basketball. But then what happened was that all of a sudden in the last 3 minutes of the game is where things switched and they changed into another mode. And for some reason, Northwestern thought that they could possibly win this game. And they were playing like they thought they could. And they got even more intense down under 1 minute. Foul shots being made, everything else. And I'm biting my nails because it was going between 5 point lead to 7 point to 6 point lead and everything. And I'm like, oh man, this is over. And lo and behold, Northwestern pulled it out. They didn't win the game, but they did cover the spread. And it was a great night. It was a great night. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the show. Hope I brought some value to you. And please remember to like, comment, share, or subscribe to help the channel keep growing. Hope you found some value in today. And hope you guys enjoyed the games tonight. And I will see you on tomorrow.
Yeah, lights on, game time, let's break it all down. From the spreads to the lines, who's up, who's down. We're crunching the numbers, calling the plays, talking all sports in a big time way.